Hi, you guys. I have to apologize. I'm late, and it's going to be a really short show. The only excuse I can think of is that I'm not really used to the new schedule yet. We just started a new safe stream version for YouTube, specifically in honor of YouTube's terms of service and community guidelines and whatever else there is controlling what's okay to say, which eliminates most of what I would usually have to say, especially in a situation like what we're going through now. But we wanted to not lose contact with you if you're only, for whatever reason, only watching us on YouTube. So that leaves us with the non-controversial things that could never upset anybody and would always be fine. And we just going by the universal standard of the kind of kumbaya, total harmony, free energy of the whole thing, and keep it like that. And I promise that starting next week, hopefully it'll be able to keep the promise that I'll be on time, which is 4 o'clock Pacific and 7 o'clock Eastern on Saturdays for the safe stream version, so that it's like they talked about safe spaces. The universities, I think, discovered this massive breakthrough therapy for people in the colleges and universities that were really traumatized by having to think about things that I can't mention here, but they were really, really threatening. And so they made rooms that these people could go to in the universities, whether they were undergraduate or graduate or PhD students or medical students or whatever they were. And they could go in there and connect with their deeper selves by interacting with Play-Doh and crayons and other advanced tools of psychological comfort. I'm not sure if they had finger painting or not, but hopefully they did, because that would more round out the therapy. And we're trying to make this show in harmony with that general theme, so that everybody would feel safe and at home in this show environment. And it's not normally having to be as short as we are today, because this is live. This is actually live. Obviously, I would record it a lot smoother if it was recorded. And the show right after it, which we are saving the Safe Stream YouTube viewers from having to look at, which could be upsetting to anybody who is not ready to handle what's actually going on in the world. So we're keeping that on other platforms, and you can stay in touch with that. Of course, it's only with the understanding that when you see where that is being broadcast still, you won't look at it, because honestly, it's just too upsetting. I think what's going on in the world right now is so abnormal that it's really safer to be oblivious and just be blindsided by whatever the authorities do, because you know that whatever they do is to take care of you. So you don't really have to understand it anyway. And hopefully that'll give us high honors with all the major platforms, and we'll be able to stay in touch with you. And you can still go to lostartsradio.com. And there's all kinds of educational videos and articles and things keeping up with current events and other important things that we want to share with you, educational and inspiring things. And just make sure not to look at most of it, because it would just be too upsetting. The only thing that I can really mention to you, I think, out of what we're going to cover starting in a few minutes on the Evil Live show that I'm not putting on YouTube anymore, is that there's an event tomorrow, and it's being held by Stephen Greer, Dr. Stephen Greer and his allies. It's a live stream event, and I'm going to be watching it, and so are some other people that I can't mention on this broadcast because their names are very upsetting. And the way that you sign up for that, if you want to, is go to SeriousDisclosure.com, and it's not spelled serious like being serious. It's like Sirius the Star Sirius, SIRIUS disclosure.com, and that signs you up for the live stream event tomorrow. It's going to be streamed from Arizona, but Scottsdale, I think. But you can see it from anywhere in the world that you're allowed to get onto the internet. You know, not those places where they are protecting you from the internet because it's too dangerous and upsetting to actually be able to access it. But from everywhere else, you can tune into that live stream. I think it's going to be super interesting. In fact, to me, one of the most interesting people that's going to be there talking is Steven Seagal, who's a martial arts movie star and was in a lot of kind of action adventure martial arts movies, but is actually a Buddhist and a person who's really devoted to universal peace and things like that. So I can mention that on this show. I don't think any of you are upset, right? And there's going to be military witnesses there who have, that's Stephen Greer's whole unique part of his unique contribution, because when he had a near-death experience, and when people, that's when you basically die, but your body is not dead, and you can come back into it and live a little bit longer in the body. And a lot of people have reported very similar experiences of light and kind of confirmation to things that they had hoped were true. And Stephen Greer had one of those events as a teenager, and he also had very close to that time, an encounter with some people who weren't from around here, just to put it in the vernacular. They had actually come from other places, and they took him up onto a craft that would be called an ET craft, and they were interested in the peaceful future for humanity so that we wouldn't blow ourselves up, and very concerned about the fact that the direction that humans were going was directly toward extinction of the race, and that's what the ETs called a level 0 civilization. I guess civilization in quotes, because it's not really very civilized, but they were wanting us to become a level 1 civilization, which would be a gigantic leap and it's kind of a joke that people think that we're the intelligent life in the universe, and we're a level 0 civilization, which is defined as one that is intent on suicide as a whole planet, planetary culture, fighting each other and being really stupid, falling for all this division, that is complete nonsense, not realizing that we're all coming from the same source. There's the same origin, the same nature, the same essence of who we are has been called made in the image of God. It's actually not a physical image, like you have to have the right body. It's consciousness, it's spirit. And when we realize that's who we are, this whole situation on earth that's too unpleasant for me to talk about will reverse. And the question is, will we do that in time? And there's a lot of people who think, no, we won't do that in time because the prophecy is for it all to be destroyed. But even if that turns out to be true, my feeling is that if you're aware of some of that situation, it feels better to try to make a positive contribution to what happens rather than just be defeatist about it and say, well, there's nothing we can do and we'll just sit around waiting to be destroyed until God saves us. There's a different feeling to that, and everybody has to decide what they feel best doing. But for me, I think anything we can do that at least has a theoretical possibility of opening up people's awareness of who we are and the fact that we have, not from our ego center, but from God, from our origin, we have this unlimited power that is ready to flow through us anytime, and it's already flowing into us, or we wouldn't even be here. We wouldn't be able to sustain ourselves without it. So really opening up to it fully and seeing what it wants to do through us, that could also be the most enjoyable thing that we could do, especially under the current circumstances that I can't talk about because they're too potentially upsetting. And so the event tomorrow, Stephen Greer, after he had these experiences that most people would not believe, they'd say, oh, there's no ETs, or ETs are evil, or whatever their version is, that they don't want to hear about it. And with the near-death experiences, most people don't believe that's possible either. So he had to decide what to do with those insights that changed his whole perception of the world. And he became a medical doctor, a great emergency room doctor, but later on decided he had to go further. And he said, you know, these beings that he now knew from firsthand experience were benevolent and existed and were here. A communication between humans, a link, a protocol to make that possible was what he wanted to do. And also to show other people that, no, this isn't crazy. He knew the military had been dealing for the U.S. and other governments with the ETs for decades and decades, and certainly since the 40s and probably before, mainly because in the 40s they got really worried that the nuclear weapons would be the end of life on this planet, which is certainly, you know, a possibility looking at what their potential is and other things too. So he developed a protocol and started taking groups out into the quiet wilderness areas and practicing basically a variant of meditation to specifically invite friendly contact with other species. And the results have been quite incredible. And he got covert military branches and corporate branches that were cleared far above president to be willing to say on video what they had been sent to do. And some of them were sent to pick up the debris from crashed UFO vehicles, which are real. And there are lots and lots and lots of corroborating witness events of that from people that didn't even know each other, and they reported essentially the same things. Craft have been they didn't crash. They were shot down by this military industrial complex group that is basically patrolling globally to make sure that they don't make contact with humans, because it's important to them that humans understand the ET creatures as a threat, as evil, as black magic, as terrifying, and that we have to give up any remaining rights and sovereign nations in order to fight them and save humanity. You know, like so many other things that are saving humanity that have the slight side effect that they enslave and kill us, but they still save us officially. So that event is tomorrow, SeriousDisclosure.com. I'll be listening in on it, and if you feel like it, maybe you will too. You don't have to do that, though. Stephen Greer has a lot of interesting video material on YouTube. It's not censored because I suppose at this point anyway, they think that we won't be smart enough to realize that it's a message of peace, which is a threat to the agenda, and worth finding out about. I recommend you look into it with an open mind. And I met Stephen Greer, and I think he's a sincere, honest, dedicated person who's really doing some unique work worth knowing about. Again, I apologize for being late and for having such a short show. I'll try to be here at 4:30 Pacific next week, and the shows that we don't want anybody upset by, the Lost Arts Radio Live and the private Planetary Healing Club meeting after that, to get into deeper levels of the whole thing. Those are starting essentially now. We're 2 minutes late. So any of you that are involved in that, we'll see you in a few minutes. And have a good week, the rest of you. And we'll meet you here again next time. Have a good week. Good night.